What is a little bombshell your therapist dropped in one of your sessions that completely changed your outlook? Accepting something doesn't mean you have to like it. That took away a lot of my inner conflicts about situations because I could accept a situation without expending energy internally fighting against the injustice of it. It's called radical acceptance in DBT. Yes, you come to acceptance, but you don't have to like it or condone it. This allows one to grow. Fun fact: during a group discussion about acceptance and the manner that you're speaking about it, a person whose native language is Hebrew spoke up. They were having a very hard time with the discussion because the Hebrew word for acceptance inherently means that you condone it. So, just something to think about when working/talking to people from different cultures. In German, a common sentence is, "I don't accept it but I tolerate it," can't get more passive-aggressive. I feel like this is direct though and not at all passive-aggressive. Not accepting things is like lying to yourself about where you are on a map when you're trying to get somewhere. I had a therapist 10 years back who called this idea the bats in the attic. He had a whole thing about how he and his husband have an attic where they store seasonal decorations, which my therapist loved. However, he despised going into the attic because there were always bats up there. He said he eventually came to the realization that he didn't have to like the bats, but he did have to accept that they are going to be there. It is 10 years later and I still refer to things as bats in the attic. If you're a therapist named Brian who loves the movie 16 Candles and who this story sounds familiar to, thanks again for being awesome. I needed that back then. You are not responsible for your parents' emotional well-being. They are independent adults who have been on this earth for many more years than you. Adult children of emotionally immature parents, give the series a read. That book was incredibly revealing and really helped me make progress, both with my family and in my marriage. I was struggling to make sense out of all these people and just could not. Read that and suddenly I understood. That enabled me to move forward with insight and changed how I deal with them. And myself. The weirdest thing about reading that book was that it even nailed the relationship between my mother and her mother. 100%. Intergenerational/inherited trauma. My grandmother treated my mother like she was lesser than her brothers just because she was a woman, internalized misogyny, much? My mother swore she would never make her future daughter feel less than like she had felt growing up. My mom did her best, but her unresolved trauma from having abusive and emotionally absent parents resulted in treating me like an extension of herself that she could control. Mom never got piano lessons as a kid? Well, she just forced her daughter to take them, never mind that her daughter had no interest in piano and had expressed interest in other things, like martial arts or drawing. Mom never got complimented on her looks. The solution was to hyper-focus on her own daughter's appearance and pressure her to conform to her strict beauty standards via plastic surgery so she could compliment her daughter and thus feel good about herself. Mom never felt listened to or validated by her own mother. Instead of getting a therapist, she just trauma dump on her daughter and share age-inappropriate information for hours on a daily basis. Whatever my mom wanted, she got. That was the expectation. She tried to live out her unfulfilled dreams through me without ever acknowledging that I was my own person with my own strengths, weaknesses, wishes, dreams, likes and dislikes. If I ever tried to stand up for myself, I was called ungrateful and selfish, the irony, given the silent treatment, pushed around physically, or a combination of the above. I was made to feel responsible for her happiness and well-being from a young age. I was parentified and had a very enmeshed relationship with her that I'm still trying to undo today. She doesn't realize that in spite of her best efforts to not be like her mom, she became abusive herself and was largely responsible for my lack of self-worth, my people-pleasing tendencies. My inability to stand up for myself or confront problems, my body dysmorphia, and my depression. Apologies for trauma dumping myself here, but all this to say that trauma is a powerful, insidious thing that can persist and be passed down unconsciously for generations. I can only imagine what kind of horrors my grandmother was subjected to based on the few stories I had heard about her life. I'm frightened of the thought of having children one day, only to unconsciously hurt them like I had been hurt. My only consolation is that I'm doing everything I can to end the cycle with me. I have my therapists, close friends, the internet, and that book to thank for getting me this far in my journey. No, don't be sorry. You just described my childhood to a T. I hated makeup and dresses and pink and loved dirt and snakes. But my mom's mom and dad bullied her so bad for her looks that she caused me a lot of self-image issues trying to give me what she never had. She told me at 12 that I wasn't allowed out of the house unless I had a full face of makeup. Now I don't wear it, sensory issues, and I can't look at myself without thinking how ugly I am. I am so sorry. And I hear you. I struggle with body acceptance and feel incomplete and naked if I go out without full makeup, perfect hair, and nice clothes. It's hard not to go to the gym and be critical of my belly pooch or small boobs and remember my mom asking why my body isn't like hers. The few times my mom was overtly sweet to me was when she was pleased with my appearance, and now as an adult I crave verbal affirmation and compliments to feel worthy. To counteract that, I often remind myself that nobody gives a shit how I appear to them, and it's not my job to look beautiful for others. Beauty is not a tax you pay to exist in this world. If you feel empowered to wear makeup and pink, you do you. If you feel empowered wearing no makeup and no pink, you do you. The importance is on expressing yourself with what feels good to you. I also try to compliment myself with verbal affirmations that have nothing to do with my looks but rather my personality traits and accomplishments. It helps shift the emphasis from vanity to things that truly matter in life and sustain you. Stop trying to get everyone to agree when you need everyone to agree. The least agreeable person has all the power. Really changed my outlook on planning family events. Reminds me of the time a psychic told my mom that my late grandma was upset about something. My mom laughed and said my mom was the most stubborn woman on the planet. If she was here she'd be upset about something. I didn't really find out why my dad hated planning family events until after he died. Without him taking care of all the planning, it devolved into total chaos where no one could agree on anything. Bickering about where to go, what to do, when to go, how much it would cost, who would pay and how much. I watched my dad stress about this stuff for most of my life until he decided one year that he had enough. He was going to decide where to go, what to do, when to go, didn't give a shit how much it cost, he was going to pay for everything and for everyone. He then told everyone the plans and said, "You can come or not come, your choice." Oddly enough, when you took the financials out of the equation, suddenly everyone was able to agree on where to go and were able to adjust their schedules so they could go. He died in 2013. We didn't go on another family trip with my siblings, their kids, our aunts, uncles, cousins until just last year. Because no one could agree on anything. It was mostly a money thing. How much they thought they should pay compared to the other people going. Split evenly? Oh, no. So-and-so has 3 kids and it's just me and my husband, why should we pay the same as them? I knew my dad just said F it and paid the entire thing, but I really didn't have the means to do that until recently. But I basically did what he did. I planned the whole trip, paid for it, and me and my family, plus my mom and her boyfriend, were going to go on vacation. I sent out invitations to everyone. Initially I got some suggestions from a sibling and a cousin about where we should go and when. I cut that shit off immediately with, "This is all done and paid for you. You can come, or you cannot come. You are welcome, but if you can't make it, we understand and will miss you." Magically, everyone was able to adjust their schedules and come for the free vacation. What kind of trip accommodates this many people? Seems incredibly expensive. This is really good of you, Op. I do not nearly like my family enough to even consider attending a family trip, so this concept is foreign to me. If it's renting out a large beach house, it's an attainable deal compared to hotels and restaurants for everyone. I've always said that in the absence of real leadership, the biggest winner usually gets what they want. Same idea. Especially in social situations, real leadership is exceedingly rare. I've heard a quote something like, "Power without character is evil." Furthermore, character is a victory, not a gift. Just because you are a character doesn't mean that you have character. The wolf. I've never really had friends. I've had colleagues and classmates and housemates and people who have hung out with me, but I never really felt close to any of them. And I did that thing you see on here sometimes. I stopped reaching out to see if I would be reached out to, and I wasn't, which I took as confirmation that they didn't really want me around, or at the very least, that they wouldn't mind my absence. I was talking to my therapist about people I'd been close to in college, and she told me to pick one and talk about him. So I did. And after I shared some basic stuff like his name and his major etc., and a couple anecdotes, she asked me what else I knew about him. And I couldn't answer. It wasn't really a broadly applicable bombshell, but she said what else, and I started crying because I realized that for as simple as the question was, my inability to answer spoke volumes. I've never had good friends because I've never been a good friend. I'm withdrawn and reserved, and I always made others do the work to drag me out, without ever extending my own friendship in a meaningful way in return. If I wanted to have meaningful relationships with other people, I would have to build them. I'm still working on this, but I'm trying to make more offers and extend more friendliness to others in my daily life. I had a similar shock to my system when I suddenly realized that the people I had in my life then at 21 could still be there in 10 years. And if I didn't want to lose them, I had to start treating them as if they would be. Made me realize I'd always thought other people were temporary presences in my life. Lots of hard work, and it's a work in progress, but I changed. I show up for people now. I do the work on myself that allows me to be the bigger person in conflicts. I learned how to balance the energy cost and the value from my friendships. I'm basically not the same now at 31, but I'm better and happier, and I still have many of those same friends going strong still. This is so interesting, because for me it's the opposite. I have few friends, but I know so much about other people, housemates, friends, sport partners, yet they know almost nothing about me. Same here. As usual, it happened just a couple weekends ago, when I went to a friend's family reunion. They were all strangers to me. As usual, I absorbed life stories from everyone there. That's typical. I'm kinda a people person, I guess, which is crazy weird because it's a total 180 for me compared to who I was just 10 years or so. But had a much longer chat with a young boy. When we left, my friend asked me, "Why did you spend such a long time talking to that 12-year-old boy?" I told him he's the only that wasn't stuck on broadcast. He asked me why my job was, if I was married, if I had kids, what my favorite subject was in school. It's sad, but I'd say only about 10 to 20% of the people I meet are reciprocal in a conversation. Totally get this. I will say, one thing that has made me sympathetic towards this is that I have realized that often this can be a sign of loneliness. I notice about myself, for example, that I am much more likely to talk a lot about myself without asking as much about the other person. When I have had limited adult contact, I work primarily from home and have 2 small children. I think I am subconsciously just really itching to talk to someone, so when I have the chance, I unfortunately end up talking more about myself than I should. By contrast, when I have had more recent social interaction, I am much more apt to be inquisitive about the lives of others. It's not just myself I've noticed this behavior in. My husband works alone, so he doesn't have that coworker social camaraderie that many have. So I have noticed that he often talks about himself, without asking quite as much about the other person. He's not terrible about this, but he could improve. I've noticed quite a bit, PPL who have less social contact, tend to want to discuss themselves more when presented with the opportunity for interaction. My neighbor is this way. My dad, who is older, unmarried, and works alone is this way. My remote coworker who also works primarily from home, is this way when I see her in person. I'm sure it's not always just loneliness, but also a minor deficit in interpersonal skills because their social contact is limited. I think it's a similar reason why older PPL tend to talk about themselves. They're lonely. However, that doesn't mean that some PPL aren't just plain self-involved and socially unaware. There's those obnoxious types, too, who really have no excuse. I feel that. Last close friend I had, I sat down one day to think of everything I knew about him and realized he didn't know those same things about me. I knew his job, where he went to college, what he got a degree in, how many siblings he had, what his parents did, different places he lived, etc., but he didn't know any of those things about me, because he never asked. It made me realize how one-sided the friendship was, so I stopped trying as hard to keep in contact, and unsurprisingly, I stopped hearing from him really quickly. I now try to only pursue friendships with people that actually seem like they want to know things about me and have an interest in my life. Obviously not easy, but I'm hopeful that will result in stronger, more meaningful friendships in the long run. That's so interesting. I feel like I experienced the opposite. For most of my life I blamed myself for not having close friends. I thought I didn't do enough to make them feel close to me and take an interest in my life. I finally realized that sometimes people are just not being good friends to me and don't care about me as much as I care about them. I'm in a place where I'm okay with reaching out to others and offering gestures of kindness or friendship without expecting anything in return. It's not on me how important someone else deems me. I am kind primarily because I see value in being a kind person. I guess both approaches are true to some extent. For context, I had a major TBI, seizures, strokes, and all around not a fun brain time when I was 28. You have to grieve the loss of yourself. Most people wanted me to go back to how I was. The FD up truth is that part of my brain is dead. The person everyone, including myself, knew died. I needed to grieve the loss of myself. Big time advice for the disability community and people with severe chronic pain. We talk about it a lot in those subreddits. I second this as someone with chronic, severe migraines. I don't know who I am outside of them anymore, and it makes me so sad. Yep. I went from working out 5 to 6 days a week to hardly being able to walk 10 minutes without being exhausted. I miss being able to just go about my day. Now if I want to do something that others do casually, I have to plan a few days before. Why do you make people more comfortable when you are uncomfortable? When talking about people pleasing and fawning. This is a great question to ask ourselves. I have a habit of people pleasing that I have been working to unlearn for a while. I read somewhere don't set yourself on fire to keep others warm, and it really stuck with me. I was definitely taught, unconsciously, I think, by my parents that my emotions made everyone else uncomfortable and that was bad. It translated into make sure everyone else is happy as an adult because if I was making other people happy or comfortable, in theory nobody would tell me off for being in a bad mood, right? Well, turns out folks can absolutely tell when you're upset, even if you're doing all the right things. Please like and subscribe for more daily content.